Hi girls and boys, it's been a little while since I last saw you, since last week, and you've had a couple more chapters. Miss Duffy has read to you A Crane for Grandma, and why did Grandma need a crane? And Mr. Cranky's great idea. Now I hope you can remember what Mr. Cranky's idea was, because your challenge today is linked to Mr. Cranky's great idea. Have a little look and see whether you fancy doing it. I think it's a fun one. Anyway, you've had Mr. Cranky's great idea, so now we're on to Marvellous Medicine number 2. Why number 2? Is it because it's already made number 1, do you think? I think it probably is. So the last thing that was said was Mr. Cranky was saying, show me exactly how you mixed them all together. Do you think George is going to be able to remember? If you'd gone round the house and shed, would you be able to remember exactly how you'd mixed everything and exactly how much of everything you'd put in? I think it would be tricky, wouldn't it? Anyway, Marvellous Medicine number 2. They were in the kitchen now, and the big saucepan was on the stove. All the things Mr. Cranky had bought were lined up near the sink. Come on, my boy, cried Mr. Killy Cranky. Which one did you put in first? This one, said George. Golden Gloss Hair Shampoo. He emptied the bottle into the pan. Now the toothpaste, George went on, and the shaving foam, and the face cream, and then the nail varnish. Keep at it, my boy, cried Mr. Cranky, dancing round the kitchen. Keep putting them in. Don't stop, don't pause, don't hesitate. It's a pleasure, my dear fellow, watching you work. One by one, George poured and squeezed the things into the saucepan. With everything so close at hand, the whole job didn't take more than 10 minutes. But when he was all done, the saucepan somehow didn't seem to be quite as full as it had been the first time. Now what did you do? Cried Mr. Cranky. Did you stir it? I boiled it, said George, but not for long, and I stirred it as well. So Mr. Cranky lit the gas under the saucepan, and George stirred the mixture with the same long wooden spoon that he'd used before. It's not brown enough, George said. Wait a minute, I know what I've forgotten. What? Cried Mr. Cranky. Tell me quick. Because if we've forgotten even one tiny thing, it'll not work. At least it'll not work the same way. A quart of brown gloss paint, George said. That's what I've forgotten. Mr. Killy Cranky shot out the house into his car like a rocket. He sped down to the village and bought the paint and rushed back again. He opened the can in the kitchen and handed it to George. George poured the paint into the saucepan. Ah, that's better, George said. That's more the right colour now. It's ready, said George. At least, I hope it is. Right, shouted Mr. Cranky. Let's give some to a chicken. My heavens alive, why don't you calm down a little bit? Mrs. Cranky said, coming into the kitchen. Calm down, said Mr. Cranky. You expect me to calm down? We are mixing the greatest medicine ever. The best medicine ever discovered in the whole history of the world. Come on, George, dip a cupful out of that saucepan and get a spoon. We'll give some to a chicken. Just make absolutely certain that we've got the correct mixture. Outside in the yard there were several chickens that hadn't had any of George's Marvellous Medicine number 1. They were pecking about in the dirt, the silly way that chickens do. George crouched down and he held out a spoonful of the Marvellous Medicine number chicken, he said. Come on. Chick, 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 chick. Can you see the picture? Feeding the chicken. A white chicken with black specks all over its feathers looked up at George. It walked over to the spoon and went peck, peck, peck. The effect that Marvellous and Medicine number 2 had on this chicken was not quite the same effect as produced by Medicine number 1. But it was very interesting. Shrieked the chicken, and it shot 6 feet up into the air and came down again. Then sparks came flying out of its beak, bright yellow sparks of fire, as though someone was sharpening a knife on a grindstone inside its tummy. Then its legs began to grow. Its body stayed the same size, but 2 thin yellow legs got longer and longer and longer and longer still. What's happening to it? Cried Mr. Killiecranky. Something's wrong, George said. The legs went on growing, and the more they grew, the higher up in the air went the chicken's body. The legs were about 15 feet long when they stopped growing. The chicken looked perfectly absurd with its long, long legs and its ordinary little body perched high up on top. It was like a chicken on stilts. Oh, my sainted aunts, cried Mr. Killiecranky. We've got it wrong. This chicken's no good to anyone. It's all legs. No one wants chicken's legs. I must have left something out, George said. I know you left something out, cried Mr. Cranky. Think, boy, think. What is it that you left out? There's a picture. Look at that silly chicken. He's way up high, isn't he? And his long legs. What is it that you left out? Oh, I've got it, said George. What is it? What is it? Quick! Flea powder for dogs, said George. You mean you put flea powder in the first one? Yes, I did, Dad. A whole carton of it. Well, that's the answer then. Wait a minute, said George. Did we have brown shoe polish on our list? We did not, said Mr. Cranky. I used that too. Ah, well, no wonder it went wrong, said Mr. Cranky. He was already running to his car, and soon he was heading down to the village to buy more flea powder and more shoe polish. The next chapter is called Marvellous Medicine number 3. Do you think he's going to get it right this time? Do you think he's remembered all the ingredients? There were an awful lot to remember, weren't they? Have a little look on the challenge. It's Monday today, and therefore the Monday challenge should be up. And it's all to do with being persuasive, trying to persuade people that they maybe want this medicine. Not medicine number 2, but medicine number 1, the one that works. Have a lovely week, work hard, have fun, and I hopefully will see you all on Teams soon.